Louisiana-style red beans and rice, oyster and artichoke bisque, Louisiana jambalaya. Welcome to Dishing It Out Louisiana Style. I'm Angela Bertone, your host. In Louisiana, we love to cook, we love to eat, and we love to talk about it. In Louisiana, we not only cook with our hands, we cook with our hearts. Some people call that Southern hospitality. We call that a way of life. Are you ready for some mud bugs that are known as crawfish in Louisiana? Today we're going to have crawfish etouffee. Before we get started, I want to show you what my ingredients is, and we're going to talk a little bit about crawfish and why it's such an integrated part of Louisiana. When you think of us, that's probably one of the things you think of. Okay, so we have some already boiled crawfish, and these crawfish, actually I picked up, someone else had already boiled them for me locally, one of our markets, and they have all the seeds in them that they need. I'm going to break them apart so that the fat can come out, and we're going to make a stock out of this. Okay, we have our Louisiana peeled crawfish, and these crawfish actually have all the fat in them. If you look, you can see that juice around the edges, and crawfish fat has an orange, yellow, almost mustardy kind of color to it, and we want to keep that fat. You definitely don't want to throw it away. Sometimes when people eat crawfish for the first time, they think, oh yuck, I can't believe y'all like suck all that out of the heads, and that's so nasty, because I think they think it's something other than fat, and it's not. You can tell that part. It's like a little black vein that goes down the back. Yeah, you don't want those. Okay, so this is 2 pounds of crawfish, and the recipe calls for 1, but in my family, they like to have a little bit of rice and a lot of seafood, so I just doubled my crawfish. And we have our staples in Louisiana. You've got your onion, your celery, and your bell pepper. Now that's called the Holy Trinity. Well, in etouffee, you're gonna add garlic, which is also known as the Pope. So we've got the Holy Trinity and the Pope going in this dish today. For our garnish, or this is gonna go in kind of last, I've got parsley and our green onion tops. In addition to that, some people actually like to put fresh tomatoes, and I won't throw, if they don't smell, I don't want them. Do not put tomatoes in my food that tastes like a sponge. And this is my own little extra added tip, if you will, is okra. My husband loves okra, and I like to call it okra, but some people call it okra. And it's just going to give it a little bit more thickness to our etouffee, and it's going to give you extra chunks of vegetables inside. So that's what we have to go in our pot. We're going to melt our butter. We're going to add some vegetables, not all of them. We're going to add some vegetables. We're going to incorporate our all-purpose, self-rising flour. We're not going to brown this roux. We're going to lightly toast it. And the only reason we do that is so it doesn't taste like raw flour. So that's what we're going to be doing. All right, let's get started by breaking up our crawfish apart, putting it in our pot, and getting our stock going. So I'm just going to show you a few of these. We're just going to break them apart. And again, what we're trying to do is get that fat. And this is going to look a little bit different than if you was at a fresh crawfish bowl, but you're going to see the fat that's in there. So we're going to go ahead and put these in the pot. And you can eat these too. They're completely cooked. But basically, I'm just trying to render out all the flavors of the boiled crawfish with all the traditional Louisiana seasonings. And one day you guys come back and we'll actually do an outside crawfish boil for you so you can see what all we do. We want to grab this flavor. Okay, I've got a bowl of water. We're going to cover these crawfish in the water and turn our heat on so we can begin to take out all that flavor. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and put our butter in the pot, get it fired up, melted. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put our butter into the pot, get it melted. I like to use a lightly salted cream butter. I do not use margarine. If I don't have enough fat in my pot when I go to put my vegetables in, because I have quite a bit, I'm just going to add some peanut oil or olive oil, and I like extra virgin, extra light, so that we add no extra flavor to the pot other than what I want. And I definitely don't want an olive oil taste in my etouffee. An interesting thing about etouffee is that the Cajun are actually credited for making this wonderful dish and making it, I guess, famous in Louisiana. And it's the records go back, or the history goes back as far as we know, to like about 1920. But in the 50s, it kind of became more popular. And then actually in 1983, someone introduced it to the restaurants on Bourbon Street. So ever since then, etouffee is like real common for Louisiana. And we have our two words today coming from what we're making, etouffee. And one is the actual meaning of the word, which means to smother. So we're going to talk today in our food for thought about the word smothered and the word crawfish. So don't forget to hang into the last segment. We're going to tell you some food for your soul using those two words. The butter's melted, so let's go ahead and put our vegetables in. We're going to go with our white onion, and this is about, well, actually it's a 1 large onion and then a half a large onion. So with 2 pounds of crawfish, if you didn't have that much, it's not going to stop you from cooking your etouffee. Just, you want a lot of chunky onions. I've got 3 to 4 large ribs of celery, and I've diced those pretty thick. You want that texture in there. If you don't see your celery, it's not going to be a very traditional etouffee. If you don't like it, I guess you could cut back, make it what you want, but celery is heavy in etouffee. I'm not going to put any of these vegetables in right away because these cook faster than this right here. So we're going to let this simmer for a little bit. What you want to happen to your vegetables is you want them to actually wilt. So I would say you're going to cook this in that block of butter for about 8 to 12 minutes, just depending on your heat and how your stove cooks. I like to tell you a little story about who taught me how to cook etouffee, and one of our little family, I guess, inside jokes about it. My husband's mom, Miss Faye, taught me how to make etouffee. So when my children were little and I would cook etouffee, we would say, let's go cook etouffee, Mama, and they knew what we meant. So this is a recipe that's etouffee. Our crawfish are boiling and our vegetables are wilting. So let's go to the next step. We're going to go ahead and put in some garlic. And I'm going to do, if you know me, I'm going to do a little gift here for my husband. I'm going to throw in some whole cloves. That's usually not what you want to do, but he likes them that way. So I'm going to spoil him. All right, the rest of them we're going to mince. And the only reason I do that is he wants me to fish him out, put him on his plate. But we're going to mince this completely because we want the garlic to actually just cook down into nothing. And the other ones are large enough that I can fish those out. So if you don't like a big old chunk of garlic, you don't have to have it. Good old Southern hospitality. Okay, we're going to shave it off. We're going to go ahead and put in our bell pepper. Now, traditionally you would use green bell pepper, but being my new friend that you are, you know that I don't like green bell pepper because it gives me indigestion. So we're going to go with red, plus it gives it some color. I'm going to let this cook a little bit. Now, one thing about etouffee that's a little bit different than like a pot roast or a stew is that etouffee is traditionally thicker. So it's definitely not like soup. It's a little bit thicker than what you'd originally put over, or what you would think about rice and gravy. So it's a heavier sauce, if you will. And so we're going to put anywhere from 2 to 4 tablespoons of flour, and I'm probably going to put right at 1/4 of a cup, mainly again because I have so much crawfish. I'm making a pretty large pot. And I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to put in my green onion bottoms, because these don't take long to cook as well. And I'm going to put in my flour. Remember, if the flour is not equal portions to the butter, your roux is going to be a little bit too lumpy. So I have some peanut oil right here by the stove, and more than likely I'm going to be adding some of that peanut oil. Oh yeah. So let me do that. Don't measure, so it's kind of like, does it feel right? Does it look right? So how did crawfish etouffee become such a staple in our diet? Well, let me tell you a little bit about crawfish balls. We all gather. When I say we all, I mean literally we all, like neighbors, family, friends, as many people as you want to gather together. We put picnic tables, card tables, any kind of patio furniture. We gathered all outside, cover it in newspaper, and traditionally the men boil our crawfish. Not always, but traditionally. Of course, the men think they're better at it than we are, so we don't argue with them, we just let them do it. But they take these huge pots and they put water in the pot and fill it with all these different seasonings like onions and garlic and lemon. They put corn and potatoes, all the different spices that are traditional for a crawfish bowl. They bring that to a large bowl and they seine the crawfish. So what does seining crawfish mean? Basically, they put it in a big wash tub and put salt, and the salt causes the crawfish to purge themselves so that they're not gritty and they're clean. And so you might have to do that 2 or 3 times, depending on if it's spillway crawfish or if it's pond crawfish. And the crawfish are going to just have a much cleaner taste without all the sandy, gritty flavor that you would think of because they live in the mud. They are mud bugs. The women will actually go inside, take some crawfish, and peel them just like this. So while tons of people are outside eating and enjoying their crawfish, the women are inside peeling crawfish so that we can make an etouffee. Some of the children actually can't peel a crawfish, so this is another way for them to enjoy. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and get our stock in, incorporate some other things, and we'll show you how to finish up our etouffee. We'll be right back. Our flour is just barely toasted. Our crawfish have come to a boil. So now we're going to go ahead and put our liquid in and put the rest of our ingredients into our crawfish etouffee. All right, you use a whisk. And that's to keep your flour from lumping up. If you have a partner in the kitchen with you, get them to whisk while you pour. We're going to add our okra. About a cup, maybe a little more than a cup. We're going to add our wonderful crawfish. I'll tell you a little bit more about our crawfish bowls once we get everything together here. And I'm also going to go ahead and peel a couple of tomatoes, and we're going to spice it up for you. You can use canned tomato if you'd like, that's not a problem. And some people don't put tomato at all. So if you're not a real fan of a tomato flavor or the chunk of tomato, just leave it out. Make it your own. Remember, that's what Louisiana style is all about, is taking recipes from each other, sharing what you like, keeping what you like, changing it up a little bit, like that okra that I put in there a moment ago. I don't know anybody else that does it, but I'm sure I'm not the Lone Ranger. Now the color of the crawfish is going to give it that little bit of an orange tint to the roux, but also the tomato, the red bell pepper, and I'm going to put a little bit of paprika. That's one that Mama Faye gave me. Her recipe, it calls for paprika. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit of tomato sauce. But I'm not going to put tomato sauce. I'm going to use my tomatoes instead. And I definitely will add the paprika whenever I go to spice it up. If you have garden tomato, fresh okra, don't pass up the chance to make something like this. You need to add a little bit of water. This is a little bit too thick right now. It's about the consistency that I would like if I was serving it, but I'm not quite ready to serve it because my okra needs to be done. My tomatoes need to cook. So while this is doing its thing, I'm going to spice it up. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about boiling crawfish and what it feels like to live in Louisiana, gather with your family. So let's get these spices. Fresh ground black pepper. I'm going to salt it. This is hot sauce. Pick your favorite flavor of hot sauce. There's multiple ones. I'm going to say a couple of tablespoons. I'm going to squeeze some lemon in my hand just to capture any seeds. We're going to put our paprika. I'm going to say this is more like a tablespoon. And then I'm going to whisk it. All right, we're going to put some garlic. We're going to put habanero pepper. You can use cayenne, but I won't habanero. And I'm going to put a little bit of what we with crab boil spices or seasonings. I'm just going to put just a touch. It's very hot, so I don't want it to burn you. All right, and what we're going to do next is we're going to make some Creole rice. We're going to grab a really pretty one, right, so that we can put into the rice. We'll bring that to a boil. We're going to put 1 bouillon cube. We're going to put a few bay leaves, a little bit of regular parsley, a little bit of green onion tops, and we're going to put our little mud bug. Put a lid on it. Let me tell you a story when we were little. We would go over to my mom and dad's best friend. At their house, they had drainage ditches that were not sewage ditches. So my dad took a broom or a mop handle and a 2x4 and would nail the 2x4 to the end of the mop handle, and that was our rake. So we would throw that rake out into the ditch and scoop, and we'd catch the crawfish. So what do we do in a crawfish boil? Well, after we put all the paper on all the tables everywhere, and the men would boil these big pots of spicy water on top of like a butane burner, like maybe what you would fry catfish or fish fry. We do the same thing, but we put our crawfish in it. So the kids would be out there helping the men seine. They would stir the crawfish. Sometimes they get bit a time or two, but you had to be really fast and do it in motion. If you knew what you were doing, the crawfish would fight. They would boil the crawfish in this big spicy brew, I guess you would call it, until they were perfect. And every man has a different secret as to how long they cook their crawfish before they throw it on the table. The water's boiling, so let's get that rice in there. Put the lid on, turn it off. 5 minutes, fluff it, rice is done. Easy as pie. We'll be right back. Okay, it's time to fluff the rice and get ready to complete our meal with some garlic bread and some homemade whipped butter. Okay, what we're going to do is slice our bread. This is just a French bread. Let's just get our butter going now. Have a block of butter, garlic powder, fresh parsley, olive oil, homemade, or not homemade, but fresh grated Romano cheese. And this is whipping cream. So I'm just going to put a little bit of whipping cream first, and then as we whip the butter together, we'll add some liquid as we need it. Okay, you guys, I made it with my bread without burning it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put this butter right onto the bread. Look how fluffy. In a restaurant, you're probably going to get your etouffee on the bottom and then the rice on top. But in our house, you're actually going to get the rice on the bottom, etouffee on top. That tastes really good. Tastes the good black pepper. You know, sometimes it's not a bad idea to put your ground black pepper on last because you really taste it, doesn't cook away. What you want to do is you want to have this on your table with your bread. Put your Louisiana hot sauce out. And maybe just extra salt and pepper for those who like it a little bit extra spicy. Okay? How beautiful is that? Now, remember, I told you in the very beginning that we were going to have some food for thought. And the 2 words were etouffee, which means to smother, and crawfish, which when I think of crawfish, I think of backing up. So here's your food for thought. In a relationship, sometimes people feel like that maybe another person is pulling away. And everything that has life to it, your lungs, your heart, everything is in a vibration or a pattern that comes together, goes apart. It's called ebb and flow. And if we lose that ebb and flow, it can be detrimental to the relationship. So the normal thing somebody wants to do when one person pulls apart is they want to chase them. But my advice to you is don't smother them, crawfish. pull away, not to punish them, but to just give your other person or partner or friend or family member some room to breathe. Because when one person pulls away, it doesn't mean necessarily rejection. It just might mean that you can breathe. So pull apart, come together, pull apart, come together. So when you're feeling smothered, you feel like you need to pull away, that is healthy. But if the other person chases you, you feel more smothered. So the one that feels rejected, be a crawfish and just pull away and don't take it so seriously so that whenever you come back together, it's mutual. There's your food for thought. So join us next time. Dishing it out, Louisiana style, for more food for your body